I started this project after speaking to friends and various women about their symptoms of the menopause. And as a woman, I am not currently experiencing those symptoms. And to be honest, after listening to them, I hope I never do. These amazing women are empowering themselves to get a sense of their identity and at the same time supporting other women to alleviate their symptoms who have maybe never spoken to anyone about their menopause or don't have anyone to speak to. Hello.
Hi, Loretta.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Thank you for having me today.
You're welcome. Come in.
Yeah, lovely to see
Get
you.
the conversation started.
Yeah. I'm sure you've got a lot to share with us, and we will all appreciate what you've got to tell us, about the menopause and your experiences. So thank you.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Be as honest as I can be.
Thank you.
First and foremost, hello. My name's Cheryl Clark. I'm married. I'm 56. I'm a mother of two, grandmother of two, and I'm postmenopausal.
Okay. What's that?
That's after you've been through your stage where you no longer have a period anymore.
Okay.
So that's the stage I'm at.
What were the symptoms before you became postmenopause? What were your symptoms? What did you experience?
Well, I think it was around about 45. I started to. It was the hot flushes for me that started first, and I thought, I can't blow dry my hair. I didn't want to get dressed. I was irritable with the hot flushes, and I thought, no, I was confused a little bit at the beginning.
Okay.
I wasn't really sure that it was the menopause because I was 45 and sort of been led to believe that was quite young. I think it's different now. I think they're saying that you can start your menopause from 30 to 50
and sometimes some women are even younger.
Yeah. So, but at the time it was the hot flushes really that started, and also like a feeling of I used to get really angry really quick. No patience.
Did you know what was going on, or you just had these fit emotions?
Yeah, I think I've sort of thought, well, I could be starting the menopause.
Right.
So, this went on for a while, and once I started to sort of stop and start my period, that's when I realised, right, this is it. I'm going into my change. And I went to the doctors and said to them that my periods had sort of stopped and started, and they said, well, you've got to be in, you've got to not have a period for a year to be in your menopause. So they done a blood test. It come back that I actually wasn't in my menopause.
Right. So at that stage you didn't get any support?
No,
You was having
not really.
But you was having
I was having symptoms, and this
Okay.
is what was confusing because they were saying to me, "Oh no, you're a little bit too young
Oh, okay.
to be going through the menopause." But obviously, my mum had spoken to me about when she was going through her menopause, so I knew that it was symptoms of menopause. They said, no, you're depressed. They give me a pregnancy test. I said, well, there's no way that I could be pregnant.
I thought you was depressed because of your hot flush symptoms, or?
Yeah, because I was also quite flat. My mood was quite flat. Like I felt a little bit down, and I couldn't really quite put my finger on it. But I knew it wasn't a depression.
Sure. And they said you was depressed, and then
offered me antidepressants, and I said, well, I don't want to take antidepressants. I want you to do more tests on me to see, but it doesn't show and we can't really tell. The only way we can really tell that you're in your menopause is once you've stopped your period for a year. So no HRT was suggested. And I was really quite disappointed because I thought there's got to be some help out there for women at this stage, because I was trying to juggle my family, work, and some days I'd think, I'd just get overwhelmed.
Right.
The achiness in my bones, like I would wake up and I'd think, oh, I'd be all aches and pains all over my body, and I never realised that was a symptom of menopause. That was one of the symptoms that women can get. And I'd be thinking, oh, is something more sinister going on in my body? Is it cancer? What is causing me to have these real aches and pains? And that's also what prompted me to look at foods that helped inflammation in your body, because I put that down to the aches and pains of sort of my getting inflammation. But that was a big thing for me, the achy bones.
And when you talk about foods, what type of food you were talking about?
Sort of just turmeric. I used to ginger, to cutting out again white processed flours and opting for more whole grains, fruits, vegetables, lots of leafy greens, smoothies, chia seeds, flax seeds, all the seeds, you know, and I think that's all contributed to helping. You know, I think food can be a bit of a medicine if you, you know, research. That's all I did. I taught myself, really, basically, how to help myself. And exercise. I tried to exercise a little bit more.
Yeah.
Which I think really helped me through it.
So even though you was feeling...
It lifted my mood.
Right.
It was more for my mental health as well.
Sure.
Like what you go for, what I felt, because I can only speak for myself.
Yeah. How did it impact your mental health?
Mood is flat, no libido. I lost my libido, which impacts your relationship. I mean, my husband's really understanding. There's never no pressure with him.
Yeah.
You know, I've been with him since I was a teenager, so we're friends as well, so it kind of gets it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. In yourself as a woman, you're not feeling yourself.
Yeah, no, you don't feel sexy. I didn't feel really sexy. I just wanted to walk around in my pyjamas and my Ugg boots and sling a coat over, run out to work, come back. I was fortunate enough to be able to do that in my job. And yeah, just used to sort of get through the days. But
so at what point
you sort of lose your... I felt like I lost my mojo a bit, you know, like...
At what point did you get any medical support, help, or know that you're in menopause? Did you ever get...
No, I never really went down the HRT road.
Did you ever try HRT?
What happened was, once I'd been... I think I'd stopped my periods for about 6 years, 5-6 years.
And what age
again,
was you?
I felt like I didn't have no libido. Yeah. So then I went to the doctors.
So what age was you, if you don't mind me asking, what age was you when your
45,
periods, your menstrual cycle stopped?
About 50.
Okay.
About 50, 47, 48 I'd completely stopped.
Okay.
So I was about 50, 51 maybe, and I decided to take HRT. There was more talk about it then. As the years were going by of me going through my menopause, I think there was more of a buzz around the HRT and what help there was for women, and I'd sit and think, you know what, maybe I should give it a try and see if it works
for you,
for me, which I did, and I see a different doctor, and they was quite supportive. Oh yeah, let me just say, I was going to go private.
Right.
And I went to the doctors thinking that I was going to be told, no, there's nothing there, we can't help.
Right.
And I said, look, I'll go private.
Yeah.
And this doctor in particular said, no, there are things there that can help. We'll put you on the HRT and see how you go.
And was you going to go private because you felt that you wasn't being heard by your GP, and but you knew something, you needed something more?
It was my mum that sort of said, well, if they're not going to go private and see if you can get, because you can go to Murray Stokes, and they're
so Mama kind of took charge for
Mama
and Grandma, but Mama got and that's kind of what it seems
she said,
like.
don't suffer, you're suffering, and
we have to be a community of women that are helping each other through this, or trying to understand it together. That's what I'm picking up when I'm kind of speaking.
Because my mum took HRT. My mum was the same. I started my menopause at the same time, so I wasn't shocked that I was going through it,
Right.
and finished my periods by the time I was 50.
Right.
Because my mum did.
Right.
But my mum took HRT for years and swore by it.
It worked for your mum, but how was it for you when you took the HRT?
Well, I think because I wasn't offered it really when I needed it.
Which was when
I first started my menopause.
When you went the first time,
yeah.
and told you weren't in menopause.
Yeah, and they sort of offered me the antidepressants.
Okay.
And I sort of went through it. It was because of I didn't have no libido that I thought, well, this ain't right. This can't be right. I'm young. I'm still really, really young, and I'm not feeling all the feelings that
you
I
look
used
fantastic
to feel.
for 56. You know, by the way,
Thank you.
If that helps you at all,
yeah,
giving you
thank
any of
you.
this, you know,
Thank
you look
you.
great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But you know, at the time, I didn't feel it, and I felt like I was getting old, and you know, I just felt all these different emotions. So I thought, well, let me just give it a go. And I took it for about 5-6 months, and I had a bleed. And then I went back to the doctors, and they said, oh, you know, you shouldn't be bleeding. So they sent me to the hospital, and I had to be checked. But what it was, that I had some activity still in one of my ovaries.
Okay.
But that frightened me because of, they say, you know, it could be cancer. You do run the risk of getting cancer when you take HRT, breast cancer, in your own, like. So I just thought, you know what, I've got through this. Just
come this far.
Yeah.
So,
and so I stopped. And to be quite honest, I didn't notice that much of a difference in my symptoms at the time with the HRT.
Right. So you said you took vitamins and stuff. What kind of vitamins worked for you? What did you do? Because did you have a daily routine, a regime of how you kind of treated yourself or make yourself feel better? I know you've done exercise regularly, you said. And
yeah, and I'd take vitamin E, vitamin D, vitamin C. I'd just primrose oil. I found really was a good one for me. And the menopause. Oh, menopause.
Is it the packs?
Yeah,
yes.
like those. Like I sort of took those.
And did it help you feel? How did it make you feel? What did it make you feel?
I don't know whether it really did help me. Whether it was a placebo. You think it's helping, but I don't really know, because it didn't stop any of the symptoms, and I still went through the motions.
Was it more bearable though, more tolerable? Because I know you said you talked about feeling overwhelmed and not having much motivation.
Yeah, but what
taking those over the counter. That's all right. Taking those over the counter stuff, like the menopause stuff that they
supplements.
sell,
yeah.
You know,
they probably did. And I think mentally for me, I felt like I was trying to help myself, so it made me feel better.
That you was being proactive, taking action, trying to take control, take back. Because I think, you know, when you're going through the menopause, women describe that you really lose a sense of who you are.
You do.
Because of obviously you're losing the hormones, estrogen and progesterone, and that's being taken away from you. So you are losing something, and I think, you know, you want to have a sense of taking back control of yourself and feeling like yourself.
Normal. You do feel really different. I felt really different. Yeah.
Did you have anxiety? Did you get?
Anxiety didn't really start until about 2 years ago. I never experienced anxiety, and the effects of anxiety, because before, if anybody had anxiety, I'd say, oh, come on, you can get a grip of this anxiety, like, 'cause I didn't really understand what it was. And then once I experienced anxiety, it became a very real thing. You know, my daughter said, oh, now you've got anxiety, like, everyone knows about it, Mum, like, because she'd suffered with anxiety, and I just couldn't wrap my head around what anxiety really was, because I never experienced it. But I think that was a part of going through the change for me as well.
And today, how are you today? How are your symptoms?
I still get anxiety. Like, I feel like I'm sort of coming through it now. Where I feel more like myself as I was before I started the change.
Yeah.
So there is hope.
We all need some hope.
There really is hope. And I found something out as well that I wish that I'd have known when I first started, that actually when your ovaries kind of stop working and producing all the hormones and you stop having your periods, because obviously you're not going to be making babies anymore, and you're going into your autumn years, so to speak, that your ovaries, your adrenal glands kick in and actually make these hormones. So when you think you're not going to be making the hormones, and that, you know, you're never going to feel sexy again, or you're never going to feel these feelings again, you do. I did have a symptom that started in October, which was my doctor. I obviously went back to the doctors and sort of explained what my symptoms were, which was to do with my estrogen coming out of my body. She said, that's what's happening at the moment, that's why you're feeling
the way that you're feeling.
You are.
It's good that you're on top of that, and you've got a GP who obviously is tentative to that, which is so important, that you're being heard.
Again, I feel that
things are being explained.
That's because there's more conversation around menopause now than there was when I was going through it.
Exactly.
That was just my experience. You know, there was tests like you could take progesterone cream. Now, you know, you've got all these other. I mean, my cousin, she's going through it. She's in her 40s, early 40s, and she's got this spray that she sprays on her body now. I mean, there was nothing like that when I was going through mine.
Always hope. What came out of Pandora's box is hope.
Yeah.
And in our faith is a hope.
Yeah.
And that's promising, and that's really great for women to know and to hear that you do come through, because I think some people don't think there's an end to it. Thank you for your time with us, Cheryl, and for sharing that with us.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to share.
And I wish you all the best going forward. Hi Roz, thank you for meeting with us today. You know, we're kind of on this quest to know how women are dealing with the menopause, and what's working really for people, because it seems like a lot of women are taking matters into their own hands and doing whatever they can do to help themselves. And obviously the symptoms of menopause is different for everyone. So maybe if you just let us know where you are in that cycle and what symptoms, or when did you notice that you was having symptoms or change?
Well, I'm 51 now. I'm going to be 52 this year, and looking back on it, I think that my symptoms probably started late 30s, early 40s. I'm someone that's never suffered with anxiety or anything like that, and I had a panic attack when I was 40, and it threw me because it just came out from nowhere. Looking back on it, I think that was probably the start of the anxiety, and not recognising that I was anxious, so not really knowing how to manage it, and it just resulted in a panic attack. The physical symptoms didn't really kick in after that. I would say probably about another 5 years before I started to experience things like hot flushes, a really itchy torso for some reason. That seems to be one of the symptoms. But you know, you're working full time, you're running a home, you're just keeping it moving, and it gets to a point where there are so many things going on with your body, you know, forgetting things, your eyesight starts changing. You get to a point where you stop and you think, right, okay, something obviously is happening with my body. I didn't go to the doctors until I was probably, you know, late 40s. First symptom was evident around my late 30s, early 40s.
And what was that symptom? Do you remember?
And so that was the panic attack. And I think that was, you know, the sort of anxiety. It was a build-up of anxiety that just seemed to overspill in this panic attack. But because you're not recognising that you're in the menopause, you're not identifying your feelings with a diagnosis as such.
So what did you think was happening? What did you, when you were having panic attacks, what did you put it down to?
So
was menopause going through your mind, or it wasn't even on your radar?
No, wasn't even on my radar. It wasn't until about 5 years down the line, when other physical symptoms started, I thought, well, clearly my body is going through a sort of a change. Now, yeah, it was at that point that I went to my GP to kind of say, look, I'm having all these symptoms, you know, is there sort of an assessment that they can give me to let me know what's going on? And that's when it became quite difficult, because the stage that I'm at, I'm still having regular monthly cycles, so I'm not considered as being as in the menopause. I am in the perimenopause, but you don't really get that as a diagnosis from your GP. That was more about, you know, me looking into other experiences of other women, looking on the internet, and then slowly I realised that this whole perimenopausal thing is, you know, it could last up to 10 years before you actually go into the menopause.
Right.
So at that point, I started to look at, okay, what can I do in terms of my lifestyle to, you know, help me cope with some of these symptoms, because the symptoms would range, you know, from month to month. So one month you might have more hot flushes, you might have night sweats, which affects your sleep. And then you're going into a different mode when you have sleep deprivation. So it was trying to identify all of these symptoms that I was going through, and to start looking at natural ways that I could probably address that.
And how easy was it for you to kind of find that information on natural ways? Like, how did you do your research for that?
And well, the internet, because you know, even at work, I was working in custody suites then, and there was a lot of information available to the staff there about managing the menopause, which quite surprised me. And I thought, well, I've never really seen somewhere at work sort of provide awareness.
Okay.
So I thought, well, clearly there is information out there that can raise your awareness about what's happening to yourself and how to manage that. So started to tap into what the NHS were providing, not much in terms of, you know, advice about what you could take medically, but support groups and conversations around the menopause started to become a lot more accessible. And, you know, even talking to other women at work. So from the internet, looking at YouTube, which is obviously, you know, very good, you start realising there's definitely conversations going on about the perimenopause, and women are starting to seek help during that perimenopause. It was apparent that actually something needs to be done to help those women at that stage, because the symptoms can be quite challenging.
Yeah, because you said the GP couldn't offer you or didn't offer you any support.
So at the time, when you're going through these symptoms and you get to a point where you think, okay, something's not quite right, you know, I went to my GP, and at that point, because I was still regular, the GP didn't feel the need to explain, well, possibly this is what your body's going through. I didn't even know about the perimenopause when I'd gone to my GP. I didn't even know that word. It wasn't until I started to look into it myself that I realised actually women go through this whole kind of, you know, period before the menopause.
So it's almost like if you don't meet the criteria on the GP's sort of agenda or Richter scale, even though it is really happening, if it doesn't meet their sort of markers, you're not going to get that support. So what were the things that you were doing? What have you been doing to help yourself?
I think when you get to a point where you're looking to help yourself, you know, luckily there's quite a bit of information out there. And I think that it comes in different ways, you know, experiences from different women. And then you can look at the sort of the holistic side, like what natural medicines are out there, or what natural things you can take to deal with certain symptoms. And luckily, I think because the conversation has been happening in the background anyway, there's lots of other women that have gone before us that are saying, right, for instance, someone said to me, if you take sage, that was going to really help with the itching. And I thought, that's interesting. But the thing is that the itching might be 1 month, and then the next month you might be suffering with foggy brain. and so you're constantly looking at what can I do to address this.
So
and
you kind of deal with each symptoms as
each
they arise,
symptoms as
and
they arise.
they're not consistent every month
No,
or every day
no,
or week.
No.
Okay. So what are some of the stuff that you've used, Ros?
So what I found was that I'm using consistently, definitely the black cohosh. What's that then? So that's a 1 tablet a day.
Right.
And even in the description, it mentions at least 3-4 symptoms that the tablet, can help deal with. And because it's natural, I'm very much into looking at something, what I can take naturally as opposed to, like something from a pharmaceutical company. So nervous irritability, I don't know if that's the right way to say the word, and mood swings.
Right.
These are things that you never know when they're going to come about.
Okay.
And so black cohosh is known to sort of balance that out.
Right.
And I think that with dealing with that, you feel less emotional. So straight away, I noticed the difference with feeling a lot more in control of my emotions. So this has been a constant for the past, good sort of 5 years now. I've been taking this.
Okay. Is that daily or?
And that's daily.
Okay.
That's daily. So that's 1 tablet a day, and it deals with all of those symptoms.
Okay.
Now, again, sometimes it might be a bit more effective than other months, depending on, how well you're sleeping that month, how much exercise you've done that month. But for me, this is a constant. And then in the last couple of years, or maybe mainly the last year, I noticed that the anxiety started to come back, and I'm noticing, that there's a feeling of unrest on a daily basis. So looking into that, and again, just talking to other women who are going through the same thing. What are you taking for that? And red clover came up as a really good way of dealing with anxiety. And also for me, since taking it, I've only been taking it probably for the past month, my sleep has definitely improved. So with better sleep, I'm waking up much more relaxed, and again, that helps deal with all the symptoms. So this is the red clover tea, and I basically just put it in some hot water. I'll leave this sitting for a couple of hours because I actually drink it before I go to bed. But yeah, you just strain it, and that's the process.
Okay. And does that aid sleep? That helps you to sleep?
So for me, it definitely has helped with sleep, but in looking at the benefits of red clover, apparently it helps with anxiety, which I didn't know. So as much as it's given me much more of a sound sort of night's sleep, maybe as well I'm waking up and feeling more balanced because it actually deals with the anxiety. But there are so many other health benefits. Apparently it's got a bit of collagen, I think, in it as well. Okay. So even in terms of improving skin as well, I've sort of noticed a slight difference there. My skin almost feels a little bit more supple. And yeah, I think there are other benefits that I don't even know about. One of them is actually nothing to do with the menopause, but apparently it helps to lower the PSA count of men with prostate cancer.
Okay.
So I think in general, definitely worth looking into other. I'm going to start investigating more about other herbs and see what I can take.
And when you said that you just strain it, and do you warm up the hot water again, or do you?
I tend to warm it up, but actually sometimes you can just drink it cold as well. Okay. It's not an overpowering taste. It just tastes a little bit florally because obviously red clover in its natural form is just a flower. So I don't find it an unpleasant taste. But yeah, I just feel that this is the best way of maybe getting the most of the nutrients out of it. I haven't boiled it. I've just let it sit, and you get quite a nice colour at the end of it. So yeah, that's the procedure.
Thank you.
It's about recognising triggers as well, because there's certain things I think that can trigger off things in the menopause. Definitely stress, lack of sleep, poor diet, lack of exercise. So immediately those 4 things I've tried to address those. The exercise, and even if that's walking, taking a walk during the day, obviously when you're working from home, after 3 days of sitting at home working, you do need to get out and get some fresh air, and all of that is management of longer term sort of problems.
And obviously it sounds like you're managing your mental health.
Definitely.
Is which all those things you've talked about, the exercise and the diet, actually contributes towards better mental well-being.
Yes.
You've got something in the jar. What do you want to just...
So this is CMOS, and I kind of stumbled on this really to kind of just improve my immune system. So apparently this has got like 92 minerals in it that our bodies need. I just started taking it from a health point of view, but I think that it also helps, with general sort of well-being. Obviously it's a very sensitive area. Women in their menopause start suffering with their libido, things like that. And I haven't really had any issues with that. So again, I can only say that since taking these things, I've seen an improvement, but whether they work for everyone is different.
Yeah, and I think that takes us back to the original kind of, opening or question around, or acknowledgement even, that everyone is different, everybody is different. And it sounds like as well that, having spoken to other women, that your symptoms can be very different. They're not predictable.
Yeah.
You have to kind of work with what you're presented with,
yes.
and try the things that work for you, because some things work well with other women.
That's
and
right.
Because some women are fine on HRT, and some women are not. And do you never want to try the HRT, or?
Again, through talking with other women, the women that I have spoken to so far about HRT have had a really positive experience. So that gives me a little bit more confidence, and I've only broached that subject with my GP this year.
Okay.
And luckily, compared to the last time I spoke to them, they are offering different forms of HRT. So you can have a patch. You can, I think, the tablet form.
There's sprays as well.
There's sprays as well.
Now as well. Yeah.
Right. And the best thing I think is, you can make an appointment to basically explore HRT, and I think that is so significant. And it's odd because the minute it was offered to me, or I knew it was accessible, I still wanted to pursue the natural things, but knowing that that's in the background, I think, mentally makes a difference. If the GP is there as a help, it does make a difference mentally. But when you know that they're switched off, and it doesn't matter what you say to them, that can be a little bit stressful.
Positive message that you can give to other women out there who are maybe, going through this, or not. Some women I'm aware of that haven't even reached out for help. They're just suffering in silence. Unless you ask them, you wouldn't even know what they're going through, and they haven't always even gone to seek help for whatever reasons those are. Yeah. What would your word of encouragement be, I suppose, to another woman, a sister in the same situation? What would you give as a...
I think, first of all, don't be afraid to stop and really question your body. You know your body better than anyone else. And I think with me, when it got to a point where I thought, well, my body seems to be telling me all these things I'm not used to knowing, it was taking that time to actually stop and take stock of, okay, I'm gonna acknowledge that I feel different. First of all, I think pushing through all those feelings and trying to do your regular daily life working, this is where it can get really difficult and stressful, and once you recognise, once you've given yourself a bit of time to just stop and think, right, what is different? I mean, I had a friend who did that, and she had about 50 odd symptoms by the time she'd finished writing everything down, all these new things that her body was experiencing. My advice is, don't be afraid to acknowledge, do you know what? I don't feel myself. Something feels slightly different. I also stumbled on Pilates sort of by accident, really. I had a bout of sciatica, according to the doctors. It was like a sort of a nerve problem in my back. Anyway, cut a long story short, was given these Pilates exercises from the NHS. And I noticed that when I did them in the morning, I do them in the morning, sort of unstretched, there was almost a sort of a feeling of serenity afterwards. And I thought, actually, this is very good in stress release. So I don't have the back pain anymore, but I've carried on doing the Pilates. Again, another resource for how how I manage my emotions. I think the mornings can be quite difficult when you're going through the perimenopause. You wake up in the morning and as you say, it's unpredictable what you're actually feeling that day. And the mood swings in the morning can make you feel a little bit woeful, like you haven't really got the motivation to get through the day. And so the stumbling on that Pilates, definitely for me, there's something about preparing your body for the day and preparing it in a nice, calm, a sort of it's a peaceful way of starting the day. You've got to recognise your triggers, for women that are ignoring the fact that, do you know what, I am feeling more irritable, I am feeling more woeful, I'm crying and I don't know why. Though all of those things we tend to ignore a bit. But, my advice is start to recognise them, start to embrace them and start to identify what the triggers are. So for me, definitely have to get my sleep, have to get me 8 hours sleep, can't do stress, can't do rushing around. All of those things I know now are my triggers for, some sort of imbalance feeling within myself. So it's a learning curve. It's like you've got to learn yourself again.
You're reconnecting with how your body is and your new normal, how your body is functioning for this moment in your life cycle.
Yeah. And when you get that learning myself, I think that mentally we're in a better place because you can explain, listen, I'm at my limit at the moment, or I'm not quite ready to do that. And you're managing how you're engaging, and it gives you back a little bit more control as well. So yeah, that would be my advice. Listen to your body, take stock, and try and work out your triggers and trial and error with certain things. These have worked really great for me. I'll continue them. And I feel comfortable enough to continue with this until if my body starts changing, then I might start looking at HRT. But for now, with the lifestyle and these things, I'm happy going down that road.
Okay, thank you, Roz. Thank you so much for sharing that sort of really intimate part of yourself. I am sure that it is going to resonate and help others. So we thank you for your time and we appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So I'm Rachel D'Souza and I'm a consultant in sexual and reproductive health.
Thank you, Rachel, for meeting with us. Is it okay to call you Rachel?
Yeah, great.
Thanks for meeting with us today. As you know, the menopause is something that is unavoidable for women. We can't change it. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. And a lot of people are struggling and having sort of experiences that they can't describe, and for some people it's unmanageable as well. And I think really today it would be lovely to know and hear from you as a professional, like just really, what is going on for women when they're going through that menopause, what is actually happening to us.
So the menopause is a natural and healthy part of us ageing, and it's not something we should be scared of. As we get older, for women, the number of mature eggs in our ovaries become fewer and eventually they cease altogether, and that's when we get to the menopause. So when we're younger, we tend to ovulate or release an egg once a month, but as we get older into our 40s, that becomes less frequent and then stops when we get to the menopause. And that's associated with a decline in some of the hormones, particularly estrogen and progesterone. So the menopause is described as when our periods have stopped for at least 12 months. But often women will get symptoms of the menopause which are due to the low estrogen levels, the lowering estrogen levels as we get towards the menopause. Often people will get those symptoms leading up even a few years, and that is called the perimenopause.
Right, so the perimenopause is the hot flushes. What is that, right? And the night sweats, is that the...
So those are all symptoms of the menopause. So the perimenopause is described as the phase leading up where we still can have some periods leading up to the menopause. But the hot flushes and night sweats are some of the symptoms that some women get with the menopause. They can also get other symptoms like difficulty sleeping, like aches in muscles and joints, anxiety, low mood, vaginal dryness, lots of different symptoms that people may get during the menopause.
Right, and I have heard women who, some in the perimenopausal stage have the hot flushes, and they talk about like the brain fog, and but they're still having periods.
Yes,
Yeah.
so that is the perimenopause.
Right. I've also read that it can cause cardiac problems, changes in insulin levels, and lead to diabetes and a significant quality of like life-changing symptoms. So why is the menopause so aggressive and unpredictable?
Not necessarily aggressive. It can be for some women, definitely. Some women get off very lightly and have very few. Some people just don't describe any symptoms of the menopause. We all go through the menopause because our periods stop us sometimes, and sometimes that can be surgical if someone has a hysterectomy, for example, with their ovaries removed. But the estrogen, our bodies are amazingly created and they're very complex. But estrogen does lots of different things in our bodies. It helps to keep our heart and our arteries healthy, and it reduces the risk of plaque forming in our arteries. And so when the estrogen levels become lower, our arteries become less elastic and more rigid, and so they were more prone to higher blood pressure, which can then lead to risk of stroke and heart disease, etc. And then the estrogen lowering levels also makes our bodies less sensitive to insulin, and that can then lead to higher sugar levels in our blood, which can then increase our risk of diabetes. And estrogen also has an effect on our bones, and so as the levels become lower, our bone mineral density, the density of our bones, becomes slightly less. So there's so many different things that estrogen does in our body.
Right, and so that's why all of those different things can happen to some people. Not necessarily all of those things to one person, but people can experience those kind of symptoms to the process of the menopause happening. So, because you also talked about like vaginal dryness, and women talk about a loss of like sexual libido, irritation, and anxiety. Is that to do with the estrogen level?
Yeah, so most of it's due to the lower estrogen levels. So men and women both will get lower sex drive as we get older, but that's more of a factor with women. And then there are so many other things that are going on at the time of the menopause, so it's very multifactorial. But having vaginal dryness can often make it harder to have sex as well, and there are lots of things that women can do to try and help with those symptoms. And the estrogen also works on our brain, so the lower levels of estrogen in our brain can have an effect in the course of increased anxiety and low mood. So we know that estradiol levels, as they lower, we might have slightly more of cortisol hormone, which is sort of a stress-related hormone, and also slightly lower levels of serotonin, which is sort of called a happy hormone. So there's so many different factors involved because the body is so complex.
Yeah. When you said there's other things that women can do in terms of what to alleviate those symptoms?
So there's loads of different things women can do. So general behavioural factors like exercising regularly is really good for us. Eating healthily. If we smoke, then stopping smoking can really help with lots of factors. Making sure we're a good weight, so we're not overweight at all, because that will have an effect as well. Trying to have times to relax and unwind. And if we are getting lots of hot flushes, then reducing caffeine, reducing our alcohol intake, and for some women, hot spicy foods can make hot flushes worse. Okay. So things like that, and then just things like if you're getting night sweats, just light layers to wear, and maybe have a fan next to your bed just to ventilate better. All of those things will make a difference.
Right, excellent. I've also had women that have said that because they are in the perimenopause, so they're still having their cycle, and they're still having their full menstrual cycle, they're not. Why might they not be offered treatment options?
So women that are having menopausal symptoms.
Yeah, but they're still in their full menstrual cycle. Some of the women I've spoken to, they have said that they wasn't offered because they were still in their menstrual cycle,
Yeah.
and being advised that, oh, you're not in menopause, so you don't need, or we can't give you anything, but yet they're experiencing symptoms.
Okay. So the menopause can be anything from the age of 45 to 55. The average age in this country, I think, is 51. But as we've said, women can experience symptoms sometimes many years before their periods actually stop. So women should be offered advice as to what to do if they're getting some of those symptoms, and women should have the opportunity to think about whether they want to take hormone replacement therapy as well, and that can be started while you're still having your periods.
Okay, that's good to know, because I was going to say the next thing is, how does HRT, hormone replacement therapy, help, and sort of do you recommend any other sort of pharmaceutical options, or are there any other? Because some women are frightened of HRT
Yes.
because of cancer, or they can't have it because of breast cancer in the family.
Yeah. So hormone replacement therapy is basically replacing the low levels of estrogen. So estrogen is the thing that you want in the HRT, and you can have that as a patch or a spray or a gel that you put on your skin, or you can have it as a tablet, or you can have it as an implant. That's not very frequent. Most women will have their womb still, and so you need to also be given progestogen, because the estrogen on its own will thicken the lining of the womb. So you have to take progestogen alongside that, which can be taken as a tablet or as a part of a patch, and you can have patches that are combined, or you can have a hormonal coil put inside the womb as well. So there's lots of different ways that you can take HRT, and as you said, yes, there are very small risks in terms of increased risk of breast cancer, and if you take the estrogen orally, then there's a slightly increased risk of blood clot as well, which increases the risk of stroke very slightly, but that increased risk isn't there if you use the estrogen transdermally through the skin.
That's something that, again, is useful to know, because women can, I think, from what I'm being, advised, and the conversations I'm having, or people are having, is that there's not much explanation given when HRT may not be an option, or they may not want HRT, or they may not understand. And I think if people can make a more informed sort of decision, and know why they're being offered or not being offered, I think that helps. But if that doesn't happen, they walk away bewildered. I think what's happened is what I'm kind of picking up.
Yeah, so the small minority of women with certain medical issues would mean that they wouldn't be eligible for HRT, but most women can take HRT. And if they can't take the systemic HRT that I've just discussed, then, and they're getting, for example, vaginal dryness, they still might be able to use vaginal estrogen, which isn't absorbed into the body much at all, so it doesn't increase the risk of breast cancer. Obviously there are alternatives as well, so lubricants vaginally can often be very helpful, and as you said, there are lots of other options that can be considered other than HRT if someone can't have HRT, if they don't want to have that. So like black cohosh, St John's wort. The important thing is, if you're self-sourcing anything, is to make sure you're getting it from a reliable source.
Okay, because I've also heard of urinary incontinence, is it?
Urinary incontinence.
Urinary incontinence through the menopause, and is that when you'd have the vaginal gel?
So urinary incontinence can be due to lots of different things, but it becomes more common around and after the menopause. So it's basically when we leak urine. So there are lots of different things that we can do for that. So doing pelvic floor exercises, and training our bladder if we're not getting to the toilet on time. There's lots of information out there, those are really helpful to do. But taking HRT can improve, and sometimes vaginal estrogen is very useful for that as well.
Okay, thank you, excellent. To kind of know, because I think, well, I know some women say that their bladder's gone or they have a bit of leaking, and they might think it's because they've had children.
Some women feel nervous about talking about those issues, but it's really important that you do seek advice, because there's so much that you can do, and a lot of it is doing things yourself. The exercises makes so much difference.
Okay, thank you. My final question to you is, when does it all end? And how are you left on the other side of the menopause?
Well, I mean, everyone is different in terms of what they experience. You said some women experience very few symptoms of the menopause, and other women will experience them for 10, 15 years or more, and it's really difficult to predict whether you're going to experience that or not. I think the important thing is to be able to feel in control, to do all the self-help things that we've talked about. If you do want to have HRT and you're eligible to use that, and there's no right and wrong as to how long you use that for. But remember also there's benefits of getting to the other side. You don't need to use contraception anymore, and you don't have periods anymore. Importantly, in terms of contraception, it's really important to keep using contraception until you've stopped your periods for at least a year. That's if you're over 50. If you're under 50, then we say for at least 2 years after your last period.
Why for 2 years if your menopause happens under 50?
Just because when we're younger, it's slightly less likely that our periods have completely finished. So the advice is to wait for full 2 years. Whereas over 50, we're much more likely to be very close to our menopause at that point.
Okay, and so once that happens, will the sexual libido return for most people, or
after the menopause?
Yes.
No. So all the effects of the menopause are with low estrogen levels. That estrogen level isn't going to increase again after the menopause. So those symptoms will. I mean, obviously the hot flushes and the night sweats are temporary, and they tend to resolve with time. The low libido does tend to stay, and that's why it's good to think about other things that we can try and do and help with that.
Okay. True then that older women can have a sexual life, do have a sexual life,
absolutely.
and enjoy a sexual life.
Absolutely, and there's lots of things we can do ourselves to help that. Definitely.
Okay, thank you so much, Rachel.
Pleasure.
You've just given us a wealth of information, and I'm sure that those watching will just be so grateful, because you've just really educated us, and definitely me, not just in a pharmaceutical way, but also just holistically and nutritionally, because that's what I think sometimes women don't get when they, well, not just women, but in general, when you go to the GP, sometimes, it's very pharmaceutically led. But you've talked about how we can help ourselves, which is really, we're our first doctors. Sometimes we know when we're not feeling well and what's going on. We might not know why. So I think you've really provided us with that kind of whole self-care approach, which I believe is what needs to happen when something's going through our body. In all fairness, medical professionals can only help us so much. We do have to take control and, take care of our own bodies, and have a different relationship with our bodies when things change.
Look at it as an opportunity to be healthier now and in the future as well.
Most definitely, yeah. So thank you so much for your time.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you.